The gavel struck once, twice, sharp, thunderous cracks that rolled across the hushed courtroom like cannon fire. Every head turned. Every breath stalled. The jury had delivered its verdict, and the courtroom braced for the final word. At the defense table, attorney Robert Steele sat frozen. For 20 years, he had built his reputation on dominance, commanding juries, dismantling witnesses, intimidating adversaries. He prided himself on never being outsmarted. Yet as the word sank in, his lips parted, his eyes glassed, and disbelief carved lines deeper into his face. His client, the one everyone expected to be convicted, was walking free, and Steele, the celebrated lawyer, had not been the one to save him. No, that honor belonged to someone no one had expected. A young woman who had never argued a case, who wasn't licensed to practice, who wasn't supposed to speak. Emily Carter, 24 years old, a court clerk, overlooked, dismissed, belittled, until the day she rose, trembling but unshaken, and spoke truth so sharp it cut through lies Steele had failed to pierce. The jury listened to her, believed her, applauded her, and Steele, the man who had told her she was nothing more than a note-taker, sat humiliated in the shadow of her triumph. This is her story. Emily Carter had grown up in a place where ambition was often treated as arrogance. In her small Ohio town, most kids were expected to follow the predictable paths: trade work, teaching, service jobs. Good, honest lives. But Emily had been born stubborn, with a mind that refused to let go of questions like a terrier gripping a bone. Her mother worked double shifts at a diner. Her father hauled freight across state lines. His absence felt in birthdays missed, in empty seats at band recitals, in tired hugs when he finally came home. They loved her deeply, but even they sometimes winced at her wild dream of becoming a lawyer. "You sure, Em?" her father once asked, wiping grease from his hands. "That's a mountain. Not many from here climb that high." Emily just nodded, her young voice steady. "Then I'll climb it." She devoured debate competitions in high school, staying after class to grill teachers about precedent, about the Constitution, about the gap between justice in theory and justice in practice. By the time she graduated, she had a scholarship offer, one that shocked everyone who thought she'd settle quietly into small-town life. Law school wasn't easy. Emily worked nights shelving books in the library, surviving on vending machine snacks, poring over case law until her eyes blurred. But grit was her oxygen. She pushed through, graduated, and finally, stepped into a gleaming city courthouse as a clerk for one of the most powerful attorneys around. Her dream had come true, or so she thought. Robert Steele was a legend in the legal world. Expensive suits, sharp tongue, the kind of charisma that bent juries like reeds in wind. Colleagues both feared and envied him. Judges respected him, even when they scolded his arrogance. To work under Steele was considered an honor, but for Emily, it was a lesson in humility and humiliation. From day one, Steele made his view of her clear. "You're here to observe and assist," he said, eyes flicking over her like she was furniture. "Don't speak in court. Don't insert your opinions. This isn't a classroom. This is war, and you haven't earned your stripes." He was curt, dismissive, and at times cruel when she stayed late reviewing evidence. He sneered that she was playing detective when she dared suggest a line of questioning. He shot her down with a glare sharp enough to silence the room. "You're green, Carter," he told her once, his voice echoing off marble walls. "You don't know what you don't know. So sit down and do your job." Emily nodded, biting her tongue, but inside, something hardened. The firm had taken on a high-profile fraud case. A middle-aged man accused of embezzling millions from a nonprofit. The evidence looked airtight: receipts, bank statements. A star witness who swore under oath that the defendant had orchestrated the entire scheme. The prosecution came out swinging, confident they had Steele cornered. But Steele relished the fight. He crafted elaborate arguments, attacked technicalities, raised objections with theatrical precision. To anyone watching, it looked like another classic Steele performance. But Emily saw the cracks. Night after night, she pored through boxes of evidence. And the deeper she went, the more her pulse quickened. Something was off. Numbers didn't align. Statements contradicted. A timestamp buried in a receipt screamed of a lie. She highlighted it, circled it, rehearsed how to present it. The next morning, she approached Steele's office with the evidence clutched in her trembling hands. "Mr. Steele," she said, her voice tentative, "I think I found something important. This." He cut her off without looking up. "Your job is to copy, file, and stay out of the way. Leave the lawyering to the lawyers." Her throat tightened. She wanted to shout, to force him to see what she saw, but his door slammed, shutting her out. So she went back to her desk, and she kept working. The trial stretched on. Steele's theatrics dazzled, but the prosecution's star witness remained unshaken. The jury leaned their way. The non-profit's donors filled the gallery, their faces twisted with anger, desperate for justice. Emily sat at the clerk's table, her hands trembling as she shuffled notes. She could see it, clear as day, the contradiction that could unravel the witness's story. She had shown Steele. He had ignored her. And now, as the witness repeated his lie under oath, she felt her chest tighten. If she stayed silent, an innocent man would go to prison. Her father's words rang in her ears. "That's a mountain. Not many from here climb that high." Her mother's tired voice followed. "But you've never been afraid of hard climbs." Emily's heart pounded. Her palms slicked with sweat. And then, against every warning, every order, she rose to her feet. "Objection, Your Honor!" The words cracked like lightning. The courtroom gasped. Steele's head whipped around, his face a mask of outrage. The judge blinked, startled. "Clerk." Emily's knees shook, but her voice found Steele. "Your Honor, I have evidence that directly contradicts this witness's testimony." Murmurs rippled through the gallery. The prosecutor scoffed. Steele hissed, "Sit down now, or you'll never work in this town again." But Emily stepped forward. "Permission to present?" she asked. The judge studied her, curiosity flickering. Then, with a small nod, he said, "Proceed." Emily's hands shook as she placed the receipt on the stand. "This document shows the witness was in Chicago at 9:14 p.m., she said, her voice growing stronger with every word. "But his sworn testimony places him in St. Louis at that exact time. Which is it?" The witness blinked, throat bobbing. I must have..." "Which is it?" Emily pressed, her eyes locked on his. The jury leaned forward, breath held. The gallery murmured louder. The prosecution fumbled. The witness stammered, cracked, then collapsed. His story unraveled under Emily's relentless questioning. Within minutes, the prosecution's case lay in shambles. Steele sat in stunned silence. The jury's eyes, once doubtful, now gleamed with realization. The judge pounded the gavel. Order! But order had already shifted. When the jury returned, their verdict was swift. Not guilty. The defendant broke down in tears. The gallery erupted. Even the judge allowed himself a faint smile at the young clerk who had just turned the tide. Steele's client walked free. Not because of his brilliance, but because of the courage of the clerk he had dismissed. The headlines the next day blazed with her name. "Court clerk exposes key witness lie. Saves case." Steele? Barely a footnote. The firm couldn't ignore her anymore. Offers came from other firms, from mentors who saw in her the spark Steele had tried to extinguish. Within a year, Emily was sworn in as an attorney. Within 3, she was leading cases of her own. Steele never mocked her again. In fact, in hushed tones, some said he owed his career to her. For without her, that case would have buried him. Emily never boasted. She never gloated. But she never forgot, either, the girl from the small town, the daughter of a truck driver and a waitress. The clerk told to stay silent. She had climbed the mountain, and she had won. So when someone dismisses you, when they tell you to stay quiet, remember Emily's story. Remember the young clerk who was mocked, ignored, and ordered to sit down, but stood up anyway, and won a case even the great Steele couldn't. Because brilliance isn't about titles. It isn't about permission. It's about courage. And the next time someone tries to silence your voice, remember, silence is safe, but it changes nothing. Speak. Step forward. Say the thing no one else dares. Because your voice, yes, yours, might be the one that sets someone free.